Alright everybody, so today I'm showing you how to change the CV axles on a 2006 Honda Civic 2-door coupe EX. The first thing you want to do is get the car in the air, get it supported on jack stands, make sure it's not going anywhere because you're going to have to get under the car, and you don't want to be under the car if the car comes down. Next thing you want to do is loosen these axle nuts. You can do that one of two ways. Either you can use an impact wrench, which is what I'm going to do, or you could take the center cap off the wheel and put the nut through the wheel on the center cap with a huge breaker bar and get it off that way. Either way, this little piece right here is pushed in. You can kind of see it there. I'm probably going to have to get a hammer and knock it out. But you want to pull that back out because that is supposed to keep the nut from rotating, even though this is kind of off to the side, which is weird because that was done from the factory. So I'm going to do that, hit it with an impact wrench, and see if we can't get it off there. I think I'm actually going to try to hit it first because it looks like that where it's pressed down isn't even in the right spot, which kind of stinks. So let's try it. Hey, look at that. She came right off. So yeah, that's the first step, is getting that nut off there. So do that. The next thing you're going to want to do is disconnect this fork. There's a fork that comes down here. There's a bolt. Oh wait, maybe there's not on this car. Huh. Never mind. I was looking at what they said online. So it looks like if you bust the lower ball joint, maybe you have to take your tie rod end off. This will allow all this to swing out, and you should be able to pop your CV axle out at that point. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and remove those two things. I'm going to use my impact wrench again. I have like a little fork that kind of goes in there, and it pushes the nut out. Or you can use just a regular fork where you beat it with a hammer, whichever you prefer. I like using my air tools whenever I have the opportunity. So I'm going to set that up, show you how to do that. Actually, I hope you can see this. To get to that ball joint, you can't get a nut on it, and I don't have the right size opened-in wrench to get around there. But I did notice this, that there are 3 bolts on the bottom side holding the ball joint to the lower control arm. So I'm going to go that route. I'm just going to remove those 3 bolts, and that will actually allow the ball joint to kind of disconnect from the lower control arm, and I won't have to bust the ball joint. So I'm going to do that and then see if I can maybe get it out of there without taking the tie rod end off either. By the way, this is the tool I was telling you about that you can use with an impact wrench. You can use this with just a normal wrench as well if you are going to need to bust something out, one of these joints. The way this works, you just slide it in there. You see this little beak looking thing almost will go on top of the nut, and then you just tighten this down and it'll pop it out. Now obviously if you are going to have to take this apart, you want to loosen this nut, unthread it a little bit, but leave it on there, because when this joint pops open, it pops open pretty violently, and if you don't have that nut on there, it'll come flying apart, parts will go all over the place, you could hurt yourself, nobody wants that. So make sure you use caution. Okay, so actually I've got this separated from that lower control arm. All I did was stick a this big screwdriver between where those bolts were, kind of pry it down, and it popped right out. So there we have it. The next thing I'm going to try to do is try to get that CV joint out of there, get that axle out of there without busting the tie rod end out, because as you can see there's actually quite a bit of motion there. So what you want to do is take a big hammer and gently tap that out of your hub. So there we have it, that's pretty much out, and I'm going to take a pry bar and pry on this end, try to get it completely out. Nope, that's going to take a little bit more than that. So I'm going to actually take a socket then, so I can drive this further in. That's not going to work, it's too big. So find one that fits on the inside of the splines and tap it a little more. I think this one's still actually a little bit too large as well, so find the appropriate size socket that will fit in there. There we go. I think that's out of the hub now. Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, so that's out. You can see I've got my CV axle out of the hub. The next step is just to get underneath and use a pry bar to pry the hub out of the transmission this direction. And that's it. The axle's out. You're ready to put the new one in. Okay, so you have your old axles out and you want to put the new ones in. A good practice is to always line the old up next to the new and be sure that they're the same lengths. Now looking at these, obviously it looks like the old one is much longer than the new one. However, I took it up to the auto parts store to confirm that it was actually the correct part, and what they told me was that you have to compress both of the axles, top and bottom, and they should be the same length when they're fully compressed. That's what he said. Now if you do that, these two are actually the same length, even though it looks like they're about 1.25 inches out. And the reason for that, he said, was because it looks like this one is sagging out, which is indicative of a bad joint, which is why I'm replacing them. So, just a little tip there, make sure they're the same length, make sure they're both fully compressed when you measure them. So in order to put your new axle in, it's pretty much just the reversal of taking it out. You put the end that goes into the transmission, and you want to make sure that you push it all the way in and make sure you push it straight in so that you don't damage your seal in there. And then squeeze this part back into the hub. And there we have it. And you want to get underneath the car and double check to ensure that that's fully pressed in. It should be that big outer hub part with the spindle on it should be pretty much flush up against the transmission. After that, make sure you torque this nut back on here properly. I'm sure there's a torque rating for it. I usually just get them as tight as I can get them because it's obviously very imperative that they are fully tight and it's not going to come out of that hub and the hub's not going to be loose, because if these are loose, the hub could come loose in there and then wear your hub out. You don't want that. And then once you have it torqued to the proper torque, take a punch or a big bladed screwdriver or something like that and push this in where it has that little, here I'll take it off the tripod so you can see, where it has that little indentation in the, I don't know, I guess the splines, the axle, that little indentation in the axle, so it doesn't loosen its way out. And that's it. Just put your 3 bolts back on your ball joint and you're done. Thank you very much for watching. Check out my other videos. I have like almost 200 videos on my channel showing you how to do all kinds of stuff, auto parts stuff, lots of different categories. So check it out. Subscribe to my page, and thank you very much for watching.